What's up everybody, Curtis here, and welcome back to Digibit Tech. So, earlier in the week it was brought to my attention that some people are experiencing the nickel plating coming off of their water blocks, and they seem to think that UFO Technologies product has something to do with it. If you've been around the channel for a while, you know that I heavily recommend UFO Technologies. In fact, Wifie Build behind me, I use their product exclusively, and since its completion about 5 months ago, it has been used every day pretty heavily by my wife. When I built the rig, I used all brand new water cooling equipment, so I don't have to worry about if, prior cleaners or coolants or some other stuff I ran through the loop damaged it prior to using UFO Technologies. So I figured this would be a perfect candidate to kind of do my own personal investigation. So before we go too much further, I want to state my intentions behind doing this video. It is not my intention to drag a company's name through the mud if I do find a problem. It is also not my intention to stick it to people who have had their nickel plating coming off. My intention behind this video is purely to provide you, the audience, with information regarding a product that I've used hands-on and that I have recommended on this channel. After all, after hearing about this problem, it's only right of me to kind of take a look at it and see if I can still stand behind it. Because I never want to recommend something that can harm your system. Also, I want to be crystal clear about the relationship between Digibit Tech and UFO Technologies. I do not receive payment from UFO Technologies. Also, I do not receive product from them in exchange for doing a review. All of the product that I've used on this channel has been bought with my own personal money. So now with all the stuffy bits out of the way, let's crack open Wifie Build and see what's going on. Okay, I'm gonna warn you now, this will be a lengthy video just because I want to be as thorough as possible. And just like the video that my buddy Jason and I did, I'll put the card up here somewhere. The most important part of water cooling is to do your prep work. Each manufacturer is going to have its own prep work procedure. Some will only warranty your parts if their cleaners and coolants were used exclusively. For UFO Technologies here, you have Rad Radiance, which, just as the name suggests, is the radiator cleaner. And then you have Event Horizon, which is their whole system prep that you run before installing your coolant. Both of which I got detailed instructions from the manufacturer on, and I made sure to follow those instructions to a T. Because after all, water cooling is very, very picky business. So, now we get to drain the loop. Any veteran water cooler will tell you, make sure you give yourself a proper drain. Right here is my little drain spout. And once I crack open the top of the reservoir here, woo, that's tight. Now, second step, you make sure that this little nozzle is closed. If you take this plug off and that sucker isn't closed, you will have a very bad time. Normally I have a piece of flex tubing I use here, but I just kind of took an old barb fitting and heated up a piece of PETG and just kind of smushed it on there. So that is my little drain spout. Now, I made absolute sure this bottle is clean because if there is a problem, I want to work with UFO Technologies on a solution. So if Daniel over there will work with me, I'd love to ship it back to him with the used coolant, the damaged block, the radiator, whatever he needs, so he can do his own investigation to try to come up with a solution, because that's how it should work. Okay, moment of truth. And now we wait. So that's a big old reservoir. Now you just kind of gotta rock it back and forth for a little while till you can get all over the drain. So just kind of doing an initial look with the loop completely drained. I mean, I do see some deposits from the opaque that is in the coolant. That's pretty normal. Eventually this stuff does fall out. I have a whole bunch resting right here in the bottom of the res. As far as any damage to the block, I can't really tell. There is some like buildup of that opaque material that kind of in the fins, but again, it's pretty normal. So yeah, let me try to get this drained down a little bit more and we'll jump into it. Okay, so I know what you're thinking. What's with the sudden scene change here? So last night ended up being a pretty late night. Quite honestly, most of what I was saying ended up becoming kind of incoherent babbling because I was so tired. So instead of tired Curtis trying to explain what he found, I figured that well-rested and highly caffeinated Curtis would have a better shot at not butchering this. I took the system apart last night, I drained out the coolant, and immediately I tested the pH level to see if it's highly acidic or at a point where it could damage nickel plating. I did find that the coolant was in spec. Daniel over at UFO Technologies told me that 7 to 7.9 is the spot you want to be in your pH levels with the coolant. So I knew I was good there, but I did find some kind of wear on the inside of the fittings when I took everything apart. I got the block out, took the block apart, and there was a lot of discoloration, a spot in the center of the fins that kind of concerned me. Honestly, it freaked me out a little bit. So I took some toothpaste and my finger and just kind of smeared it on the discolored parts. It ended up just being some of the residual dye that had kind of stained the machine finish of the cooling plate. So the toothpaste took like 99% of the discoloration out. There's still just a hint of it, just because I couldn't get deep down in the grooves of the metal. Once that was kind of cleaned up, I did go ahead and take the toothpaste and scrub it up the rest of the cooling plate. Everything came out, looked super awesome, but I did have some bare copper right dead center of the fins. I contacted Daniel over at UFO and had a short conversation with him, just like, hey, have you seen this before? What do you think of this? And he said that it is fairly normal to see a little bit of wear right in the center of the fins, as well as the inside of the fittings. Just to kind of double check my sources, I did talk to some people in the manufacturing industry, and they had some really good insight and kind of further explained the situation. It is normal because this is not a heat treated nickel. It's not quite as hard as it could be. And when you take the little particles of mica or whatever it is that's inside of the opaque coolant and jet them in at the nickel plating of the fins, it will eventually wear it. The reason I was seeing this much wear this soon is where those fins are so small. In the nickel plating process, the nickel can't accumulate as much as it can the rest of the block. Thus, it is going to be thinner on those fins. And once again, we're shooting that coolant right at the center of it. That's where it's going to wear out the fastest. Also, same scenario for the inside of the fittings. The inside has a thinner layer of nickel than the outer layers. Thus, you will notice that wearing a lot quicker. The bare copper isn't going to hurt anything. After all, this nickel is purely aesthetic. It's not really doing anything else for the build. So I was super relieved about that. They said that the fins, from what they know, will probably have a little more wear on them as time goes on. But they said that the rest of the nickel still looks super good, that they weren't concerned about it. and where the coolant was in a proper pH level, I shouldn't have any issues. Woo! Big relief there. I don't have the nickel issues that some of the people who kind of rose up in the community have had. Their situations were a lot more severe. Then again, don't know if it's the coolant, don't know if it's faulty nickel plating. I couldn't really get any straight answers regarding that. But as far as my system here, I am good to go. This is just wear. Again, this system is heavily utilized. So I guess the title of the video, did UFO abduct my nickel plating? So long story short, no, my nickel plating is just fine and should be for the foreseeable future. Again, if I ever do another coolant flush on here, I'll pay attention to it. I am not putting the old coolant back in. Most of the opaque kind of fell out and it's just like chilling in the bottom of my reservoir tube. But I do have a brand new bottle. Where is it? Right here of UFO Technologies coolant. This is actually out of the same batch. I got 2 liters, only needed 1. This is going right back in the system, and until I get more concrete evidence as to why I shouldn't use their product, I'm still gonna recommend it. I would like to do more case studies on this. If I had the money and the finances to, I would set up multiple loops and just run multiple different scenarios. But unfortunately, I'm limited to what I have here. So with that being said, if you guys liked the video, be sure to hit that like button. If you disliked it, there's a button down there for that as well. Sound off in the comments. Let me know what you guys think of UFO Technologies and if you would use their product. Don't forget to hit me up on social media. I will put the tag right about here. And with that being said, I guess I gotta put Humpty Dumpty back together again. So I will see you all in the next video. See ya.